Hello again, everyone, and welcome back to Life in the Woods Renaissance Field Guide. Today we're going to be covering something that's incredibly helpful to all of your farming needs, and that is compost. There's two different kinds of compost and two different ways of making it, so we're going to cover both of those and what you need to do. Alright, so as I said before, there are actually two different composting methods. One of them is vastly superior and vastly simpler than the other one, but I'm going to be covering both of them here. So the first one I'm going to cover is using this composter, which kind of looks like a little chest with two little sticks on it, like so. The crafting recipe for this composter is basically what it looks like. We've got a chest and then two sticks on either side, so relatively easy. This is the vegan option composter. So with the vegan option composter, what you have is this little chest, open it up, and what it requires is green matter and brown matter. So the green matter is something like the dark oak leaves, which I have here, and then you also need some brown matter like this, like these sticks. And I think what it shows in your inventory, when you have your inventory open, it'll show in the highlight of the item name. So sandstone is written in white, but as you can see, the dark oak leaves is written in green, which means it is acceptable as a green matter. Stick is written in orange, like so. So I don't think there's anything else in my inventory. Yeah, nothing else in my inventory can be used in this composter, but you can use food, you can use plant material. Pretty much, well, not pretty much anything, but a large variety of items can be used in the composter. As you can see in the bottom right hand corner in the WILA box, you can see that it says composting 2% and temperature 16 degrees. Now it's up to 3% composting. With this composter, you actually have to pay attention to the temperature and also how progressed the composting actually is. And I think, is it shift? Yeah, if you shift right click, you can actually spin the composter, which moves the compost around. It actually adjusts the temperature and helps speed up the composting, but only if you're doing it at the correct times and with the correct temperatures. Eventually, over time, these items will compost down and you'll end up getting this compost block. This compost block can actually be used in a farming area if you plant this block in the ground near your farmland, and that'll help boost productivity of your plants. If you're actually looking for something to use on plants, like say you want to get some ferns to be double tall so that you can use them to make bags, you can't actually use this compost on those items. What you need is fertilizer, and fertilizer is made by putting the compost with saltpeter, and the saltpeter is gained by breaking down sandstone. There's a small chance, let's see here. Here we go. So you need to put the compost with the saltpeter to get fertilizer, and the fertilizer is used somewhat like bone meal or the other type of compost. And to get saltpeter, you have a 2% chance of drops when you mine sandstone. And similar to something like flint, you can just re-mine the same sandstone over and over and over again until you get the saltpeter that you need. Once you've done all that work and you have your fertilizer in hand, you can use that just as you would bone meal or compost. I'm not entirely sure the effectiveness comparatively because I haven't really used this composter very much at all. Let's see if anything, no, nothing has actually composted yet. So this is a much more difficult, if somewhat more realistic and detailed and in-depth way of using a composter in Minecraft. Now let's cover the overpowered way that's much, much easier. So the other compost option that we have is the compost bin, and this is from the Garden Core mod. If you right click on this compost bin, it looks kind of like a crafting bench and kind of like a furnace at the same time. And when you mouse over the area here, as you can see in my inventory, there are items highlighted that are suitable to be composted. So similarly, we can put in these sticks and these dark oak leaves. Similarly with the other composter, you can use any kinds of plant matter or animal matter or foods and stuff like that. But unlike the other composter, you don't need a mix of brown and green items. You can just put whatever you want in there and it will still compost. You don't need to turn it. You don't need to watch the temperature. It just does its thing. And once it's done composting this little bit here, this, as you can see, it takes more than one item per, and depending on what's in here, it might compost better. I find with this compost bin, it's better to just have a number of them if you're trying to get a lot of compost at once, because each compost bin will only go at a certain rate. So obviously if you have more compost bins going at the same time, you'll get more compost. And once that's done, you'll get this compost here, which similarly to this fertilizer, which required more steps to get to, this compost can be used on plants, but it isn't always as effective. And it does sometimes take multiple pieces of compost, say 1, 2, that took 2, 1, 1, 2. Sometimes it could take like 3, 4, or 5, depending on what you're growing, to actually be effective. So something a little different than you can also do with this compost version is you can use it to create a different type of wood block and also a different type of tree decoration. If you use this type of compost on a sapling, it'll actually create this different version of the wood that's called the wood post. And it'll have the normal kind of leaves, but basically this is intended to be grown in a pot like a small decorative tree. But if you're needing a certain type of wood post for any kind of building that you're doing, you can actually farm saplings in this way and just growing them with the compost to get those wood posts instead of cutting down normal trees requiring bone meal or time to get those trees grown and then putting the wood and an axe in a crafting bench. As you can see here, we've got a decorative flower pot with some garden soil and a small sapling in there. If we use the compost, there you go. It makes a decorative tree that fits inside the bounds of the pot. So it doesn't look like the wood is taking up the entire width of the pot base. Now, to know one of the best ways that you can fill up this compost bin with a lot of plant life is just to run around with shears and cut all of the grass in the nearby area. You can also just grow more grass with compost or bone meal and then shear that and put that in. But that grass isn't gonna actually create very much compost. It is free though, or nearly free if you have the iron. The best way and probably most overpowered way to make compost is to use bamboo because it's incredibly fast growing. You don't need any tools to actually harvest it, and you can just leave it on its own and you'll basically be rolling in compost without actually rolling in compost. So there you have it. Those are the basics of the two different types of composting that you can do in Life in the Woods and how to apply them, their pros and cons, what might be best for you, and some of the extra uses you might not have known about. Anyways, I hope you guys have enjoyed. If there's any other tutorials, suggestions, or requests for a new Life in the Woods field guide, let me know in the comments below. I hope that you have enjoyed, and I will see you on the next episode.